Hello everyone, this is Amrita Bhortake, and today we are going to talk about my workflow for editing a dark and moody image in Lightroom, where I can take an image from this to this. Let's go. I'm going to select this image here, which I shot in my previous video. If you haven't seen it, I have actually gone through my entire workflow, how I set up my studio, how I set up lights, and how I take a particular image start to finish. This is the image that we have. I always start with my basic panel. Temperature and tint, I'm not gonna touch as of yet. So I'm going to start with the exposure. I just wanna bring it down a little bit, and maybe that's too much. Right there. I think that's good. I'm gonna leave contrast for now. I try to not actually add in too much contrast in my image using the contrast slider. I will show you how I do it. If you look at these roses, I want these highlights on there. And if I reduce it all the way, it's pulling all the highlights that I want from the image. So I don't wanna go down that much. Maybe just a smidge, like barely enough. I want to leave those as it is. Shadows, I'm going to actually, if I pull up the shadows, it's going to show me more of the image that I want. So I'm going to pull down the shadows instead. And normally I do the opposite of this. I will pull down the highlights and bring out the shadows. But for this image, because I want that dark and moody look, I'm actually going to pull in the shadows. So I'm going to go in a little bit there. I think I like it there. The whites, so here's a trick that I use where Lightroom actually is really good at figuring out what your whites and blacks levels should be. I use this trick and then I adjust it as to how I want it to be. So I will click Shift and then double click on whites and click Shift and double click on black. Now, it did the opposite of I wanted it to do. Whites, I'm okay with it, but I still want to bring it down a smidge, maybe up to there, about 48. And blacks, because I want to keep the, I want to crush the blacks. So I'm going to actually bring that down, maybe up to here. Yeah, I love that. Okay, see the difference as how it looked like before when I had the blacks all the way up as to where Lightroom had adjusted it. And now if I bring the blacks down where I want it, look at how the image changes. You can go with the software a little bit, but at the end of it, it's your image. You want to create your own look for the image. So it's your vision that you are bringing out in the image. And the software can only help you up to a certain point. It's a tool. Use it like tool that it is rather than just relying on it completely. I will leave the blacks maybe at 6, yeah. For this image, I shot it at a higher f-stop. So the f-stop was at f14. That means that it is a smaller aperture. So larger aperture, smaller f-stop. It's kind of confusing when you initially start photography, but think of it this way. If it is a larger aperture, that means the f is a smaller number. So if it is f1.8, f2.8, f1.4, it will be a larger aperture. As the aperture starts closing in, it becomes larger f-stop. So the smaller the aperture, the larger the f-stop. So if it becomes tiny, that means the f-stop has gone up to f16 or f18, f22. So this aperture was at f14, and as I said, I wanted the details in the image. When you go to texture and clarity, don't bump up the texture and clarity too much because it's going to just look artificial, but I just want to bring it a smidge up. And everything in Lightroom is such. You can make it or break an image if you use too much of it. I feel like it's like salt, where you want to use just a pinch rather than dump the entire bowl into your soup. Yeah, that's how I think about it. So just use a smidge of it. I want to bring it up a little bit, so maybe up to here. I'll show you what happens. So look at the image. If I bring it down, it becomes softer, the texture. If I bring it up, look at the texture look at all this texture. Look at this. Of course, the noise is more too, but the texture too is a lot higher, and I don't like that. So just a smidge of texture. Clarity too, I think clarity also I'm gonna just bring it a little bit, maybe just up to there. I like that. Now, vibrance and saturation, I'm going to leave it as it is for this one. If I have to add anything, I always use the vibrance slider, not so much the saturation. For this image, I like the colors and I think they're beautiful. I don't want to give it any of a pop. I want to create a small S-curve. So what I'm going to do is just add 2 points at these two points right here. Just pull it a little bit up here and pull down, maybe not that much. I actually don't want to pull it down. I actually want to bring the blacks up a little bit. So if you look at the blacks, it's going to add this matte look to the blacks. I like this as it is, where it is right now. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at here. I love HSL, by the way. If you want to be able to change colors or give a certain color a pop in the image, this is the best way to do it. I don't want to actually change any of the other colors because I love these gorgeous colors of the rose that are here. These roses, by the way, are from one plant. They're all these different colors. It starts from this milky chocolate to this mauve. All of them come from the same plant. And I want to actually leave it as it is because that's the kind of goal I had with this image. But the one thing I do want to actually change is the green. I'm going to pull up the greens tiny bit, reduce the saturation because I don't want that color. Maybe up to here. Just increase the luminance a little bit. So for luminance too, I want to highlight just a little bit on the purple, the mauve that is there. And I also want to bring in some luminance on the red that's in the image. Here, look at this. Just a smidge. That's how I want it. The last thing I want to do is maybe just put in a little bit of sharpening. And this is where I eventually add the sharpening. Okay. Okay, I like that. I feel like when I look at it on a close-up, I feel like I see some noise and I want to take some of that out using the noise reduction tab in case I plan to enlarge these at some point. Yeah, that's good. I like that. And I want to remove the chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. So this part, I always do the lens corrections, and whatever camera you're using, Lightroom actually identifies the lens that you have. And look at this, it has already identified the make of my lens. It was a Sigma 50mm f1.4 DG. Sometimes lenses create a vignetting, and basically vignetting is when you have this dark black border around the image where you can bring it in to highlight it. You can leave it as it is. Honestly, for this image, if it's a dark and moody image, you can leave it as it is because I will put in my own vignette. But I don't want to use whatever vignette the camera had for this, so I'm just going to enable that. But that's what it does. It also corrects for any distortion from the lens that you have, and some lenses have it more than others. So Lightroom will most of the times identify the lens, the type of lens, and put in the correction accordingly. If it doesn't actually pick it up, I think there's a way, yeah, you can actually, here, look at the amount of lenses it has. They have a lot of lenses. But if it doesn't do that, and if you can't find your lens on there, you can actually go to distortion and vignetting down here and actually remove that. I'm not doing any of that. I'm gonna just let Lightroom do its thing and just enable it. I don't need to use the transform tab for this one, although this is a magical tab when if something's skewed. Okay, now I'm going to go in crop and let's use angle just a smidge, and I'm going to crop it to 8:10. When I crop it, this is the time I actually see if my image has the correct proportions. And I want the rule of thirds to be right on this one flower. So look at this one right here. And I'm gonna hit enter. And that's it. The crop is applied. I actually might want to apply some post-crop vignetting. And maybe just that over there. Well, my computer is breathing really hard. I wonder what it's up to. Okay, increase the midpoint a tiny bit. Roundness. As I said, I want to put in my own vignette when it comes to this image. And look at this. I'm going to feather it, but I want to feather it quite a bit. But if I go the opposite way, look at the actual image. Look, you can see this whole oval. I definitely don't want that. So I'm gonna go the opposite way. I want it feathered as much as possible. Yeah, I like that. So I'm looking at this image and I know for a fact that my board that I use is old, and I think I've had it for 5 years. And because I've used it for so long, and when I clean the spots, it leaves some kind of a lint on it. So if you actually look on the back, look at all these white spots in there, which I don't like in this image, because there is just highlighting it. So what I'm going to do, and this is going to be more of a tedious process, but I'm going to show you how to remove it. Basically, I'm going to go up here. Yeah, that's good. So what I did was I went to Navigator and I zoomed in on, here you can change the zoom level for each of your images. And you can go higher, lower, but I wanted 2x1. And then you can move around the image and it will let you look at each detail and edit it as you want it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with one corner and use my spot removal tool. Click on that. If I just scroll back and forth on my mouse, if I just go back and forth with my finger, it increases and decreases the size. Look at the screen, it's increasing and decreasing the size. So I'm going to go with as small brush size as I can, and I'm going to start editing this. I'm going to speed up this process a little bit so that you guys don't get bored, but I'm going to show you what I do. All this tells me is to reduce this amount of work, I need to get a new board. I believe in shooting to editing, and this is just too much work. So I would rather paint the whole board again or just get a new board. Maybe that's another video. Let me know if you're interested in watching that. Oh, these flowers are so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I love this image. I feel like it turned out exactly how I had imagined it, and it makes me so happy. I really like how it looks, There's only one thing I want to do now is enhance the water droplet. So I don't know if you saw the tutorial. It's linked up here if you've not seen how I made this. If you are getting any value out of today's tutorial, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because I plan on creating a lot more photography and gardening tutorials. So there are a few water droplets that I added because I wanted that morning dew in a garden look to the image, and I just want to be able to highlight those a tiny bit. So I have used the adjustment brush here, clicked on it, and just painted over this. You can click on this show selected mask overlay to see where you have painted, and I'm happy with this. But suppose you go outside a little bit and that's where you paint, you can hit option and you will get this negative sign, and then you can just erase whatever part you didn't need to paint. That's the part I wanted to paint, and let's find the other water droplet. This is the other one. Having the show selected mask overlay clicked on actually helps you a lot in just painting whatever you need to do rather than just painting willy-nilly. So I'm going to take the show selected overlay off, and I'm going to focus on this one water droplet and now go into my panel to see what actually I want to enhance. Maybe exposure just a tad bit. So pizza ball is back. I don't know, colored wheel, pizza ball, whatever you call it, it's back. Oh my gosh. All right. As I mentioned earlier, you do not want to overdo it. So just a little bit. One last thing I want to do now is go out of this adjustment brush and go to my temperature and white balance. So if I click on it, it goes back. I love how that looks. I want to make it a little bit warmer. Yeah, I think that's good. And tint, it's a little bit too green for me, so I am going to make it more magenta. I'm just gonna look at the image. Yeah. So this key only works when you are in the develop module. Sometimes I'm in the library mode, and all it will do is it'll zoom out to all the different thumbnails. So just keep in mind, it only works in the develop module. And it's this / key. You can see before and after. So that's it. That's my workflow for a dark and moody image. This is how I edit it. If you missed my previous video, it is linked here. It is how to shoot a dark and moody still life photograph. And I didn't go through my entire editing process in the previous video because it would have gotten too long. And I wanted to take my time and show you how I did it. So this is my process. Let me know if you have any questions. I would be happy to answer them. Comment below and let me know. Thank you so much everyone for watching and joining me today. I had so much fun editing this photo with all of you. If you want to show some love, don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell to be notified for all of my future videos. Thank you so much everyone for joining me today, and have an amazing, amazing day. Bye-bye. So I'm sorry, we have garbage day today, and garbage truck is probably somewhere around here. Yeah, exactly as I said. Welcome to my channel where you can hear all different kinds of sounds. Sorry. Okay, hopefully, I don't know if you can hear that. My computer is hyperventilating. I don't know what's going on with it.